Hey y'all, welcome to this week's show. Today we're going to talk about one of the really the most iconic shrubs, I guess you would say, that grows in the mountains of North Carolina and Tennessee and Virginia and all around in the area. And really, it has a broader range than that. But the one I'm thinking of, I can picture in my mind, and it's really common, and it's Kalmia or Laurel. Now, this mountain laurel, as they call it, is very closely related to rhododendron and azalea. So you put those three plants together, and you pretty much have a lot of what North Carolina is known for. I mean, from the Azalea Festival down on the coast, I think in Wilmington area, to the Rhododendron Festival up on Roan Mountain, Tennessee, and everything in between. But the thing about Kalmia, and there's also Kalmia Gardens down in South Carolina. They're a very, very pretty place to go if you ever want to go to a nice botanical garden where you can walk around. They have an event center, Hartsville, South Carolina. Wonderful little town. One of my favorite places in the southeast. Great people. Oddly high crime rate though. So unfortunately, I mean, a wonderful place. Good restaurants. Really a nice little college there, a lot of great things to do, but for some reason, a really bad crime rate. Um, yeah, and really just like one town over from there is Society Hill, I think is the name of it. And anyway, years ago, I was really hoping, well, really strongly considering moving to that area. There's a priest down there I really like at St. Mary, Mother of God Catholic Church. His name's Father Dan. Father Dan Papineau, if I'm not mistaken. He used to be the priest at the Shrine of Divine Mercy up in Massachusetts, Stockbridge. And, I have, well, if you listen to the show much, I have a history with Stockbridge, Massachusetts as well, back when I was playing music. And, one day I wandered in. I was just wandering through that town. I was on my way to somewhere else. And stopped into the church and had a great conversation with Father Dan and found out he was just this amazing man. I'll tell you a little bit about him. He was married before he became a priest, and he and his daughter were killed, I think, in a car accident. And he went into the priesthood and had really some very interesting experiences. He's had visions, apparitions of Jesus and the Blessed Virgin Mary. He's been to heaven. He's spoken with his wife and daughter in heaven. He has insights like you wouldn't believe. I mean, like you would not believe. Very, very, very holy, spiritual, humble, quiet man. Not the time seeking attention. He's legit. He's the real deal. And anyway, if you ever want to check him out, they actually live stream the masses from that church in Hartsville, South Carolina. It's St. Mary, Mother of God, I believe. And his homilies are amazing. And they have a nice little community there, and it's kind of hard to find a Catholic community in the South. And I was thinking, I really would like to check it out. I'd like to go there. And it's near the Petey River and wonderful fishing, wilderness opportunities. Um, Maybe 2 hours from the beach, so easy to go get seafood and take advantage of the shad run. I mean, all that kind of stuff I love. And there's Kalmia Botanical Gardens, which is fantastic. Um, Really fantastic, actually. I'd love to go down there, at least do some plant walks sometime. Maybe we can at least set that up. I've never really given up on the idea, but Society Hill's a real old town. Now Hartsville's sort of a mill town. It's nice now, but it used to just be a big paper mill. Paper mill's still there, but so it has more of a diverse population. It's about half black, half white. There are some folks from up north that have moved in there. Um, Society Hill was one of those little towns with a tiny little, well, I guess Coker College was actually there at one point before it moved down to Hartsville. It's now Coker University, but it was a girls' school, and it was where the really upscale cotton farmers sent their girls to go to college. And there was another one like that in Maxton. It was what later became Presbyterian, St. Andrew's Presbyterian College. Back then it was Floral College. And these were set up really before the Civil War. And they were very protected, kind of cloistered environments, essentially, where the girls could go to school. And it was really all about networking and introducing each other and finding the right boy from the right family. And, money marries money, that kind of thing. To the extent that in the Civil War, when Sherman's troops were burning the South, because Sherman was a Freemason and the people who ran these colleges were Freemasons, they had a deal that the troops would march around the towns with these women's colleges. They'd go burn Catholic churches, but they would not touch a Presbyterian girls' school. That's just the way it was. And so I'm going through this little town, and I see a great old house, historic home, nice piece of property, for sale sign. And I thought, man, this would be ideal. This would really be ideal. And, sleepy little southern town, looks real nice as you're going through it. Got hold of the owner. I guess it was for sale by owner. And she said, well, why are you interested in moving here? And I said, well, there's this great priest in Hartsville. She said, wait a minute, are you Catholic? And I'm like, yeah. She said, okay, let me tell you. She said, I'm Catholic. I married my husband. He was from here. This place is run by the Klan. They will kill you. You do not wish to, she said, you don't want to get stopped for speeding in this town. You don't want to spend if you can drive around this town, drive around this town. And she was adamant. And apparently it is still one of the strongholds of the Democratic Party, just like Maxton, North Carolina, just like Laurenburg, North Carolina, where when I was a kid I'd drive in, they had a billboard with a Klansman on it. It said the Ku Klux Klan of North Carolina and the Democratic Party of Scotland County welcome you. It was not a welcoming sign, okay? And so, yeah, that's probably the main reason I stopped looking in that area. But I still haven't totally given up on it. Hartsville's great. I'm sure there's some great people in Society Hill as well. But she starts talking about all the political corruption and the corrupt cops, and apparently there was a cult in the area for a while that was led by sort of a fringe wackadoo Baptist minister, where they were actually trafficking drugs and human trafficking, basically like saying they'd take in troubled girls and care for them, and they were really pimping them out. Pretty bad stuff. And from what she said, a lot of the, people in charge were on the take. So that's not the first time I've heard stories like that in areas like that. So, yeah, unfortunately. But hey, if you ever get down to Hartsville, South Carolina, Kalmia Gardens is beautiful. I found the people of all races in Hartsville to be very, very friendly. Very, very friendly, helpful. Black and white, just really nice. And Father Dan is a national treasure. He really is. Check him out if you can see some of his homilies on YouTube. I don't care if you're Catholic or not. This guy has been to heaven. He's talked with angels and his family in heaven. He can tell you what to expect, when you get there and you're reunited with your loved ones. And Amazing. Father Dan Papineau. I mean, I don't care if you're not even Christian, you are going to want to check him out. And really fantastic. But anyway, Kalmia latifera. This is often confused with rhododendron, and while both plants are toxic, both have use in herbal medicine. Now, Kalmia, the one that is probably most known is Kalmia latifolia. That's sheep kill, or lamb kill, or sheep laurel. It kind of tells you it's poisonous in the name. Absolutely beautiful plant. It looks like a small rhododendron with kind of star-shaped flowers. I have one in my yard. Love it. I have several mountain laurels. I have mountain laurels. I have flame azaleas, and I have like 40,000 rhododendrons with the big purple flowers that we get in the Appalachian Mountains that we're known for. Would not do without them. They do have some medicinal use, okay, but very limited, as the name implies. Native to my region are sheep laurel, Carolina sheepkill, and wiki, and also called white wiki. I don't know where that name comes from. Probably a Cherokee name, but yeah. Anyway, and as I said, they have been used in herbal and folk medicine, but they are very dangerous and toxic plants. Miss Grieve, writing in the 1940s, describes this evergreen shrub that grows from 4 to 20 feet tall, and said it was named Kalmia by Linnaeus, the botanist Linnaeus, in honor of Peter Kalm, a Swedish professor. We don't need to get into all that. You can just Google what laurel looks like. Let's see, Kalmia. That's Kalmia. Google that. It's often called mountain laurel or sheep laurel or lamb kill or sheep kill. It's a gorgeous plant, absolutely. But anyway, she says the leaves possess narcotic poisoning properties, and tannic acid, gum, fatty matter, chlorophyll, and a substance resembling mannite, wax extractive, albumin, an acrid principle, and a yellow calcium iron. Okay. Like its sort of cousin, the rhododendron, these plants do have a somewhat narcotic property. Now, every year we have kids up here in the mountains that get hold of an old herbal book or something written by some, hippie in the 60s or 70s and think they can go out and smoke rhododendron buds. This is another one that falls into that category. Or they go in for Jimson weed or something, and a bunch of them end up in the hospital and some of them end up dead. Very important you understand that just because it says it has a narcotic property doesn't mean it's an enjoyable narcotic. As she explains, Indians are said to have used the expressed juice of the leaves or a strong decoction of them to commit suicide. The leaves are the official part used in medicine. Powdered leaves are used as a local remedy in some forms of skin disease. Yes, it does have some topical applications. And she said it's a most efficient agent in syphilis, fevers, jaundice, neuralgia, and inflammations. But great care should be exercised in their use. Whiskey is the best antidote to poisoning from this plant. So best not to ever need it in the first place. An ointment for skin disease is made by stewing the leaves in pure lard in an earthenware vessel in a hot oven. Taken internally, it is a sedative and astringent in active hemorrhages, diarrhea, and flux. It has a splendid effect and will be found useful in overcoming obstinate chronic irritation of the mucous surface. In lower animals, an injection produces great salvation, lacrimation, emesis, convulsions, and later paralysis in the extremities, labored respiration, and death. That's actually what it does in humans, too, if you take the plant. Your breathing becomes more labored, you're gasping for breath, your heart starts beating faster and faster, and you die. So, preparation and dosage. Saturated tincture of the leaves of the plant taken when in flower is the best form of administration. Doses of 10 to 20 drops every 2 to 3 hours, so very tiny. And I'm going to say don't use this internally at all. She goes on to say a salve made from the juice of the plant is efficient local application for rheumatism. Now that is a very good use for certain skin disorders, inflammations, and joints. The Cherokee used mountain laurel, the one that grows all around my house and is absolutely beautiful, for muscle soreness. Again, we're talking topically. For shifting pains. I don't know exactly what that means, but that's in quotes. A leaf decoction, including the leaves of mountain laurel, rhododendron, and leucotho, these are all toxic plants, by the way, is applied to rheumatic areas for relief. So a strong tea essentially made from the leaves of these three toxic plants applied externally for rheumatism. Take all possible laurels and some other plants and steep. Okay. Rub this tea on for rheumatism. You can scratch the skin. They said that would help a little bit. It's probably more of a counter irritant. I probably wouldn't recommend that. And let's see, in old times, a leaf ooze was rubbed into scratch skins of ball players to prevent cramps. Now, the Cherokee used to have a game. It's not baseball. It was more of a combat sport, very rough. People would get really beaten up, broken bones, sprains, bruises. I don't think it's much played anymore, though every now and then, I think maybe ceremonially they do have it. But they had various herbal treatments to prevent cramps, to help with bruising. But in this case, they would actually scratch the skin and rub the leaf, an exudate, an extract of the leaf into the scratch to help prevent cramping during the game, prophylactically, essentially. Now, the Lumbee use lambkill, and the Lumbee are more of an eastern North Carolina tribe. They go all up into Maryland and down, well, into South Carolina as well, but then, you start running into the Chicora and such as that. But they're related tribes. They say a decoction of the top part of the plant and rhizomes was made from 3 or 4 pieces and that are no more than 2 inches long, so a very small amount. And this was the one that was called Wiki. Wiki was boiled in 2 pints of water for a few hours. The decoction was poured into a bathtub to treat the mad itch or scabies. So likely good for scabies and mange. It makes a lot of sense. It's parasitic skin infections, and so it would probably kill the little mites that are causing it. Towards an American Materia Medica. This is, to my knowledge, the oldest English language, written herbal we have in America. It was when the European, well, mostly British settlers came in, and they began learning about the native herbs from the Native Americans. And they came up with what was called the eclectic school of herbal medicine because it was mixing the knowledge of Europe and the British Isles with the native knowledge and mixing the plants. Very interesting book, very good book. It lists Kalmia latifolia. He says, the author says, I have now employed the powder of the leaves of this plant exhibited internally in some cases of Tinea capitis. This is a very troublesome disease. The Kalmia is certainly a medicine entitled to attention. I have employed the powder of the leaves made into an ointment with lard externally and applied to disagreeable herpes affections of the skin. In this case also, I have found it extremely useful. Even in confirmed syphilis, it has seemed to do good. In South Carolina, the species of Kalmia is called the calico tree. I was unaware of that. I did not know that. The powdered leaves of this plant have been used with much success in some cases of intermittents. Intermittents are malarial fevers, of course. A saturated tincture prepared from the leaves with a proof of spirits is an active medicine, perhaps worthy of a place in the shops. For some information concerning the powers of this species of Kalmia and also that of Kalmia angustiflora, or narrow-leaf Kalmia, commonly called lambkill, I beg to have the reader refer to Dr. George G. Thomas's inaugural dissertation concerning these plants in Philadelphia in 1802. Again, I'm going to say don't use these plants internally. Okay, don't use these plants internally. Externally, use. Now, if you're a real expert, and next we'll get into, let's see, is this King's Medical Dispensatory? No, Resources of Southern Fields and Forests, where this is also a botanist and chemist. So when they talk about using it internally, they're not making folk tinctures at home. Okay, these are percolations. The Resources of Southern Fields and Forests says the leaves are poisonous and narcotic, Animals have been poisoned by eating them. It is said that death has been occasioned by the eating of of these by partridges and pheasants that have fed on them. Dr. Shoemaker publishes 2 cases in the North American Medical and Surgical Journal, which resulted from eating a pheasant. Oh, okay. So they're saying you could actually be poisoned by eating a pheasant that had fed on Kalmia. In the craw of which, resulted from eating a pheasant in the craw of which the leaves were found. The symptoms are nausea, temporary blindness, pain in the head, cold extremities, very feeble pulse, which in one case was for some time absent at the wrist. In others, it beat only 40 strokes in a minute, so it really slows the heart rate. Yeah. But then there's also increases blood pressure. So I'm not exactly sure how that's working. I guess it's constricting, not necessarily increasing the heart rate, but slowing the heart rate. I don't ever want to have any of this stuff. In both cases, relief was afforded by vomiting produced by a tablespoon of flour of mustard. There's an interesting aside. You can buy mustard powder on the spice aisle at the grocery store and use it. I use mustard powder all the time. It's great in everything from macaroni and cheese to a little bit in some sausage that I'm putting together. I mean, it's very, very useful. You can make up your own mustard as a condiment out of it as well, of course. If you take about a tablespoon of mustard in warm or hot water as a tea, it'll make you throw up. It's one of the most effective epicecs there is. Emetics, you would call them. Epicec's actually a plant, even though it's not used for vomiting anymore. It used to be very, very common, but in a pinch, mustard powder works really, really well. Let's see. A similar poisoning is related in Edinburgh in 1856. In which epigastric tensions and uneasiness, glowing heat of the bed, loss of sight, coldness of the extremities, general prostration, and twitchings of the muscles were the prominent symptoms, followed by nausea and full vomiting, which afforded some relief, but feelings of weakness in the limbs with great prostration and the circulation remained for several hours, requiring the use of stimulants. So in this case, instead of using whiskey, they use stimulants. So, yeah, basically, you just really don't want to mess with this stuff internally. I mean, that's what I'm going to recommend. But as always, you have to make your own decisions. Let's see. It does talk about external use. It says, by the way, it says an arterial sedative. So, yeah, it actually slows the heart rate down while apparently increasing blood pressure, which is not a good idea. Not a good idea at all. It says 2 ounces of the leaves macerated, a pint of alcohol for a week, and then strained. Yeah, I guess that was used as a liniment. I'm not sure. It's not giving me a lot of details there. It mentions that, again, this 1860s. Says the leaves are used by Negroes and poor white people as a cure for the itch or mange in dogs. Probably is still a very good idea. Strong decoction applied warm to the eruptions, which occasions much smarting. So apparently it stings, but it does apparently kill those mites that cause the mange and the scabies. Sheep kill used in the upper districts of North Carolina and South Carolina. The leaves of Kalmia angustiflora exude a sweet honey-like juice which is said, when swallowed, to bring about mental intoxication, both formidable in its symptoms and long in duration. It appears to closely resemble those of the Armenian azalea. Now, that's also true, and it's said that honey from these plants can also have a narcotic effect. I do not believe that the honey is actually poisonous. I think, once the bees actually process the nectar and turn it into honey, it's probably not going to kill you. But there are some honeys made from, Kalmia, certain varieties of rhododendron, and certain members of the heath family, which can be poisonous or highly intoxicating. Just plain old honey that you might have on your toast with butter or put in your tea can actually be have that. It just depends on what the bees have been feeding on. Now, King's Medical Dispensatory, 1898. Gives, let's see, Talks about how it can kill animals. Partridges have eaten it. People have died from eating the partridges that have eaten it. Mustard can induce vomiting. We've been through all of that. Indians use the juice of the leaves for committing suicide. But they also made the spoons of the wood, and that's where we get the name spoonwood. Sometimes these bushes are known as spoonwood. And as a spoon carver myself, I can tell you they make great spoons. It's a beautiful wood. They're often bent in interesting angles. It can be very ornate. Absolutely. Yeah, spoonwood. Rhododendron's often called spoonwood as well. Let's see. Under actions, medicinal uses, and dosages. In immoderate dosages, sheep laurel is a poisonous narcotic, producing symptoms as described above, diminished circulation. In medicinal doses, it is antisyphilitic, sedative to the heart, and somewhat astringent. I'm thinking you don't want to play around with this one, but anyway. Internally, either a powder or decoction or tincture is used. It is efficient primary and secondary remedy for syphilis and will likewise be found invaluable in febrile and inflammatory diseases as fever and inflammatory diseases, hypertrophy of the heart, allaying all febrile inflammatory action and lessening the action of the heart. In active hemorrhages, diarrhea, and flux, it has been employed with excellent effect and will be found useful in overcoming obstinate chronic irritation of the mucous surfaces. I have extensively used this agent and regard it one of our most effective agents in syphilis, and have likewise found it to be very valuable in inflammatory fevers, jaundice, ophthalmic neuralgia, and inflammations. The remedy must always be used with prudence, and should any of the above symptoms appear, the dose must be diminished or it must be suspended for a few days. In cases of poisoning, stimulants, brandy, and whiskey must be given. Wow. Yeah. Okay. So actually, very much like a drug overdose is what it turns out to be. So he goes on quoting different doctors, medical studies, how effective it was for syphilis and such as that. So hopefully you never need it. But if you do, now you know. Still, I'd be very, very careful with it. Now, modern use. Botany a Day says swamp laurel contains a substance called andromeditoxin, used in small doses as a sedative for neuralgia. Native Americans drank the tea to commit suicide. In other words, don't mess with it. Okay, Thomas J. Elpel said that in his book. Don't mess with it. I'm going to agree with that, unless for external use. Plants for a Future says medicinal use of sheep laurel. Sheep laurel is a very poisonous narcotic plant, the leaves of which were at one time used by some native North American Indian tribes in order to commit suicide. It is little, if at all, used in modern herbalism. The leaves are used externally as a poultice and a wash in herbal medicine and are a good remedy for many skin diseases, sprains, and inflammations. They can also be applied as a poultice to the head to treat headache. The singed, crushed leaves can be used as a snuff in the treatment of colds. I don't think I would do that. If the leaves can be used to make a tea to commit suicide, I'm not going to be sniffing any of them up my nose either. Used internally, the leaves are analgesic, astringent, and sedative, and have a splendid effect in the treatment of active hemorrhages, headaches, diarrhea, and flux. The species is said to be the best for medicinal use in this genus, and the plant should be used with great caution, however. And so that was sheep laurel. They also list mountain laurel. They say mountain laurel is a very poisonous narcotic plant, etc., the same, suicide, etc. Leaves are astringent, disinfectant, narcotic, solve, and sedative. An infusion of the leaves used as a disinfectant wash and a liniment to treat pain, scratches, rheumatism, inflammations, and to get rid of body parasites. Used internally, splendid effect in hemorrhages, diarrhea, and flux. Also used to treat syphilis, inflammatory fevers, neuralgia, paralytic conditions, tinnitus, and angina, or tinnitus, however you want to pronounce it, and angina, or angina, however you want to pronounce that. People say them both ways. It's like diabetes and diabetes, or whatever Yankees say. I don't know. Diabetes. I don't know. They say weird things up north. The leaves should be used with great caution, however, and only under the guidance of a qualified practitioner. Excess doses cause vertigo, headache, loss of sight, salivation, thirst, nausea, palpitation, slow pulse, and difficulty breathing. Swamp laurel, very narcotic, used for suicide. Leaves are good external treatment for many skin diseases and inflammation. Leaves are astringent sedative, used externally as a poultice or wash for the treatment of many skin diseases, open sores, wounds that will not heal, and inflammation. Um, Used with great caution, only under the supervision of a qualified practitioner. And if I was going to use it under the supervision of a qualified practitioner, I'd want some references. I'd want to make sure that practitioner's patients were still alive. I'm just saying. It's like this guy got in touch with me a few years ago, and he'd been reading all that Dr. Sebi nonsense. Now, I'm going to let you look up Dr. Sebi. He was once a very famous herbalist. He treated Michael Jackson and all kinds of other, questionable characters. I think Oprah may even had him on her show one time. I don't know. Um, he was charged with fraud. He was, I think, finally arrested in South America on the run with millions of dollars. And after saying he could cure any form of cancer, if I'm not mistaken, he died in a hospital with liver cancer. So, you know, it's kind of the guy that gives our herbalism a bad reputation, in my opinion, but some people still follow his nonsense, even though it was later found out that he really had no training and no knowledge and was not a doctor and was making up a lot of stuff as he went, as best I can tell. I don't want to slander the dead, but it doesn't seem to me that he was anything more than what the government thought him to be. But anyway, he recommended yew as an anti-cancer agent. Yew, the most toxic plant, one of the most toxic plants on the face of the earth. It's right up there with aconite and poison hemlock. And yeah, yew is being has been and is, I guess, still being scientifically studied as a potential cancer treatment. But it's not a folk remedy. It's not taking a tea or tincture of yew. That will kill you. That will kill you. And anyway, this guy got in touch, wanted to know where he could buy yew, and I'm just like, why do you want it? And well, Dr. Sebi said. And I'm like, okay, first of all, you might want to look into who Dr. Sebi was, okay? Secondly, this is a very, very poisonous plant. How are you planning on using it? He's like, he tells me he's going to make a tea or something, and I'm like, dude, you're going to die. This is going to kill you a lot faster than the cancer would. So, yeah. There's a lot of bad information. That's why I try to give you all the warnings and so many different sources because, especially when someone says this is lost knowledge, this is hidden knowledge, this is something they don't want you to know. Well, it's hiding in plain sight. You can go to your local library and get an old herbal book and learn all about it. Anyway, so Peterson Field Guide for Central Medicinal Plants. Sheep laurel. American Indians use minute amounts of the flower and leaf and twig tea for bowel ailments. Okay, I can see that. I'll buy that one. Minute amounts for bowel ailments. Tiny amounts of leaf tea were used for colds, backaches, and stomach ailments. Externally for swellings, pains, and sprains. Warning, highly toxic, do not ingest. And for mountain laurel, it says American Indians used leaf tea as an external wash for pain, rheumatism, in liniments for vermin. Historically, herbalists used minute doses to treat syphilis, fever, jaundice, heart conditions, neuralgia, and inflammation. Warning, plant is highly toxic. Even honey from the flowers is reportedly toxic. Avoid use. And that's the mountain laurel that grows in my yard. Not a plant to be afraid of, not a plant to go snacking on either by any means. So, y'all, that's going to wrap this one up. You know what? I got this real short entry. I'll throw this one in at the very end. Kerria japonica, Japanese rose. Not native to my area. It is naturalized, pretty little plant, shrub, I should say. It's often called bachelor's buttons. Now, there's another flower called bachelor's buttons, but this is actually the shrub version. Two different plants. Plants for a Future says, a decoction of the flowering shoots is used in the treatment of coughs and women's complaints. Don't know anything more about it than that. Couldn't find any more information, so I'll just leave that as a footnote. If you have Kerria japonica or Japanese rose or bachelor's button on your property, you might want to do a little research on it. And I guess I would look more into Asian medicine on that since it's apparently a Japanese plant. And, I've often said it's amazing how many plants in North Carolina, which we almost consider to be native now, they've been here for so long and naturalized, come from Japan. I don't understand how we got like hundreds of Japanese plants somewhere in the late 1800s, early 1900s. There must have been quite a plant trade between Japan and North Carolina because we got a ton of Japanese plants. Tons. Really amazing, actually. All right, y'all. Have a great week, and I will talk with you next time.
The information in this podcast is not intended to diagnose or treat any disease or condition. Nothing I say or write has been evaluated or approved by the FDA. I'm not a doctor. The U.S. government does not recognize the practice of herbal medicine, and there is no governing body regulating herbalists. Therefore, I'm really just a guy who studies herbs. I'm not offering any advice. I won't even claim that anything I write or say is accurate or true. I can tell you what herbs have been traditionally used for. I can tell you my own experience and if I believe an herb has helped me. I cannot nor would I tell you to do the same. If you use an herb anyone recommends, you are treating yourself. You take full responsibility for your health. Humans are individuals and no two are identical. What works for me may not work for you. You may have an allergy, a sensitivity, an underlying condition that no one else even shares and you don't even know about. Be careful with your health. By continuing to listen to my podcast or read my blog, you agree to be responsible for yourself, do your own research, make your own choices, and not to blame me for anything ever.